Welcome! My name's Colleen. I'm a traditional astrology student and practicing astrologer. I offer natal chart readings, solar return readings, transit updates, and many more to see what the stars have in store for you for the upcoming year. One thing I wanted to do is cross over my interests in pop culture with my knowledge of astrology to just kind of show the possibilities of looking at transits or in a natal chart looking at placements to see when things get activated and the real practical power that astrology has to show you when different things are going to be big topics in your life. My biggest interest in pop culture is most definitely drag race. Drag specifically, but Drag Race, the TV show. So, to prove this, these are the 3 biggest books I own. 2 of them, this is actually so heavy, 2 of them are astrology, and then 1 of them is drag with the wonderful Violet Chachki on the front. So, here we go. We're going to talk about Trixie Mattel today, who is a sensation, a YouTube star, a country music singer. She is from my home state of Wisconsin, so I guess that's cool. I don't know how much we are both proud of being from Wisconsin, but we're from there, so the format of the video is going to be as follows. First, I will read her natal chart, talk about her ruling planet, significant placements, how it's playing out in her character or in her life, because a birth chart is not just about who you are, it's about your life. It's about the people in your life, the experiences you have in your life, and the energy that is sort of cyclical, or topics that are sort of cyclical. So start with that, natal chart reading. Then we're going to move on to look at her transits when she went on RuPaul's Drag Race Season 7 in 2014-2015. After that, we're going to look at her Allstars run in Season 3, which, spoiler alert, she wins. So we're going to talk about her different transits there and how she had a lot going on when she came back, that we can even connect back to her run in 2015 during Season 7. As for the data I'll be using, I'm getting it from Astro Databank. It has an A rating. It's from memory, so we could be maybe a few minutes off. Her ascendant is towards the end degrees of Virgo, but I do really see her having a Virgo rising, just relative to where the other planets then end up falling in the houses. To just begin with her natal chart, Trixie is a Virgo rising, and one of the first things we look for in a natal chart is where your ruling planet is, because your rising sign is significant of you, and so your ruling planet, where that is in your chart, is going to be sort of depositing the energy into you that maybe if you're a Virgo rising, for example, but your Mercury, ruling planet, is in, let's say, Pisces, where it is in detriment, it doesn't have a lot of its tools, you're going to be a very different Virgo rising than most other Virgo risings, and might not even really associate a lot with the typical, like, Virgo traits. Trixie, on the other hand, she has her ruling planet of Mercury right here in her first house of Virgo. It's also notable that she has Mars in her first house, and this is a day chart, so that means her malefic of Sect, which is like the planet that's kind of bringing up the bad stuff for her. Malefic, meaning, bad. Is in her first house of Self. I know a few people who have Mars in Virgo, and one thing they all have in common? IBS queers. They have real digestive issues. And there's been a few times on the show, where Trixie has said there's at least one day a week where she's almost shitting herself. So, kind of funny. What else? Something else significant about Trixie's chart is that she has Saturn in her 5th house of creativity, loosely 7-degree orb, trining her sun in Virgo. Now, Saturn rules restrictions, realities, solidification. Wherever Saturn is in your chart, pre your Saturn return, you'll likely struggle a lot, have a lot of limiting opportunities in that area. And whatever planets it touches, the themes associated with that planet, I feel like have something to do with your Saturn return. So for Trixie, a lot of her Saturn return is tied up into her ego, how she asserts herself, with her Mars also trying that. But especially her ego, because if we talk about progressed charts, which if you don't know what that is, it's where the day you're born, so Trixie Mattel, August 23rd, every day after that is symbolic of a year after your birthday. So the 24th of August would be symbolic of her year from ages 1 to 2. And then if we do like August 30th, her year from age 7 to 8. So in her progress chart, her sun slowly starts to apply further and further to Saturn. So that is a very significant placement in her chart because that trine is getting tighter and tighter. So her Saturn return, just looking at her natal chart, is going to be crucial for her sense of expression. As a child, she likely felt like and she's said this before, couldn't creatively express herself or didn't know how to, or there was a time where she said, I think it was her grandpa that gave her a guitar or taught her how to play guitar. And Saturn, another thing it really represents, I found in some people's charts, because we can't make generalizations about everyone's chart. Everybody's planets can signify different things in the chart, and in a context where I can talk to the person and think about different dates and what was happening at that time, we can sort of delineate what it actually means. But it could be that in Trixie's chart, Saturn also has something to do with her grandparents. And maybe her grandparents were that first initiation of her expressing creativity by learning how to play guitar or listening to country music, which feels like a very Saturn and Capricorn thing. I don't know. Beyond that, other notable aspects of her chart, she has Saturn opposite Jupiter. And she also has all of these Capricorn planets, well, pretty much all of them opposite Jupiter because they're all moving backwards. That's what the red signifies, is a retrograde planet. So especially having her Saturn opposite her Jupiter, lots of need for compromise and balance between topics of creativity and self-expression versus doing that in a community of people and who you share your creative expressions with. Like, I know one thing for sure, with Trixie being so famous, having Jupiter in the 11th, this is how, like, this is where her fans would live in her chart. And her fans are, like, absolutely dedicated to her, to a toxic degree for some of them, where they, like, come for other queens and just create a sort of toxic culture. And that's not all of her fans for sure, but Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, so it has a lot of the tools that it likes there to be expansive and bring opportunities. So this definitely shows that she has a dedicated following. Dedicated. And a very expanding one. Like, the first time she went on Drag Race, people loved her, even though she did not perform as she would have hoped to. Nonetheless, she got booked and blessed, or whatever they say after that, so pretty cool. And that's another thing where her Saturn return is clearly so important for her chart. It's important for everyone's chart, but there's some people's charts that they have planets that don't get aspected in profound ways until Saturn returns. Because Saturn is the last planet to return to the original spot in your chart. Every other planet, at age 12, you go through your first Jupiter return, and then again at 24, and it takes about 27 and a half years until you are at the time for your Saturn return. So, other significant placements, with her being a drag queen, the first house is representative of who you are. The second house is things on your person, like what do you have, basically. And I'm not sure, but I have the instinct to say that a drag persona may fall in your second house. So with her having Venus in Libra, which is Venus's domicile, that's where Venus is at home and can make everything beautiful, balanced, and valued, that is very telling of money matters, because that's the second house topic. Clothing that she has, just her eye for design and color scheming, which her creating an entire, she's a beauty mogul, right? She has like a whole brand now, like that's very second house. She's creating her own sense of beauty, which is very what Trixie Mattel was too, because the name Trixie, very interesting, originated from like basically a slur, an insult that one of her mother's ex-boyfriends or whatever called her, and then she sort of twisted that to make it her own, what is the word, like to like claim it back, to like, what is the word when you like take something, to take back, like the word queer, like that was a slur and then they took it back and it now means something else. It's a word of power now, which maybe that's even Mars on the ascendant as well, taking the bad things that people say about you and making that a part of your identity to have power over them. Yeah, that feels like a very Mars on the ascendant thing, along with horrible digestion. On top of health matters, Trixie has a lot of things that point to her having to release internal self-doubt, things from the past that are really having an effect on her psyche, which is the South Node in the 12th house. The South Node are lessons that we need to release and move on from. And then the North Node, that's opposite, right over here, is representative of what we need to move towards. So hers being in Leo, a lot of her doubt when it comes to self-expression, her Trixie persona, her idea of fame and creativity. And then with the North Node in the 6th house, as she gets older, a lot of the topics of what is her constant reality, what's her routine. The 6th house is a Cadent house, so it ends up not really being so much about the native of the chart, but sort of more about what's opposing you in the world. And with it being Aquarius, it's a very humanitarian energy. So as Trixie gets older and maybe some of like the fame elements start to die down a little bit, I hope and I imagine she may start to use her money towards more philanthropic, humanitarian topics. So I don't know, we'll see. It's a little prediction for you. Beyond all the other planets we've talked about, oh, one thing that's interesting is she has a Taurus moon, which I find funny because Katya is a Taurus, and then on top of that, Trixie often talks about like loving food and like wanting to eat all the time. I mean, she literally does eating videos with like different people, I'd say like once a month, but it's okay, I stand. The biggest takeaways from Trixie's chart are her Saturn making a very exact aspect to both her Sun and then also her Jupiter. These two placements teach me that this Saturn return is going to be especially crucial for developing her sense of creative expression and how she shares that with others. So anytime there's significant transits happening to her 5th or her 11th house, we're going to see those parts of her really shine. All right, so now let's talk about what was going on for her as she was in season 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race. So I tried to find exactly when they filmed. All I know for sure is that Trixie was 24.
This is Amori Povich. My name is Trixie Mattel, and I'm 24 years old.
So this means it was after her birthday in 2014. So I just picked August 24th. I also know it was before September 11th because that is Ginger Minj's birthday. So it was probably between the beginning of August, or the end of August and beginning of 2014. So as for the episodes, the first air date was March of 2015. So let's just start by, if this was hypothetically when she was recording, let's see what was going on for her. So the inner wheel is Trixie. So we have her sun here, right? All those planets we were just looking at. The outer wheel is going to be the transits of that time. So we have to start Venus and Jupiter going through her 12th house. Normally this wouldn't be super significant, but since they're getting closer and closer to her south node, which represents the past and what she needs to release, this shows me that she's in a cycle where she's learning a lot about her values of herself subconsciously. She's probably starting to realize that self-doubt and anything where she is not acknowledging what's going on beneath the surface is an issue. And having Jupiter there, she could have an expanse of, intuition. She could have an expanse of other 12th topics such as like enemies coming out. She could start to acknowledge any mental health issues she may have been struggling with. It's also significant because she's in a financial nodal axis at the moment, with the second house being her money and then the 8th house being other people's money. With the North Node being in her second house, a lot of this year is focused on money for her. And with her having Venus in the second house, normally I would say that's really good and helpful, and we didn't even really talk about that before, but she has a day chart. So her benefictive sect is actually Jupiter, which is in her 11th house of communities. So she's going to get a lot more support and expansion and beautiful things that are helpful to her through like her fans and her communities than exactly through money. Although I'm not worried about money for her at all, and like I don't even need astrology to say that. Like I said, she is a beauty mogul building an empire, knows how to make a brand so clearly, and knows how to balance a brand too, with Venus in Libra. So I don't know. It's interesting because she is pursuing something to get more money by going on RuPaul's Drag Race, right? Where like the cash prize is $100,000. But with the South Node being in her 8th house of other people's money and Uranus being there, it's not exactly, because she's technically getting the money from someone else. I wouldn't say it's a really great transit to go on to a game show to try to, or a reality show, I guess. Well, it's a reality game show, but try to get money from someone else with the South Node in your 8th house. Not great. Beyond that, she has Saturn, transiting Saturn right here, on top of her natal Pluto. And Saturn is a very slow moving planet. So if we like take it back, oh look at that, it even retrograded back. Oh man, so there was some cycle for her that started late 2013 and then all the way back into when she started filming the season of Drag Race, came back up. And Saturn has a lot to do with I've said this before already, realities, parts of you that need to be solidified. Sometimes it has to do with like pessimism and just like not really seeing a way through. And when it's on top of Pluto, Pluto rules fears and intense transformation and anxiety. So I think a lot of this, Saturn rules her 5th house of creativity, where she has her natal Saturn too. A lot of this might have been her facing her fears related to maybe being famous with Jupiter and Leo at the moment with her South Node. Maybe her fears of sharing her drag persona with people because, shit's real. Like, people critique the hell out of you, and it's a very vulnerable thing for drag queens to share their artistry and not only get hate from people in the straight community, but also people in the queer community and just people in general on the internet, and not really knowing what to do with such information. So she probably had a lot of anxiety related to how people would communicate with her, take her sense of creativity, and so on. Something else that probably did not help her in this season was that Venus as well in her 12th house, because Venus rules her 2nd house of money, and transiting Venus is about to go over her South Node, which would mean that she'd lose a lot of values that she has related to her Venus house topics, which would be money, values, material possessions, but then also her ninth house of spirituality and like beliefs of like higher being and theories and whatnot. So she was just going through a very transformative time when she started recording this, where a lot of her identity was sort of shifting. On top of all of this, where her sense of creativity is sort of changing and her values are being shifted, she is in a first house perfection year. If you don't know what perfection years are, here's a little wheel. Basically, every year of your life, a different house in your chart becomes activated. And when you're at ages 12, 24, 36, and so on down that line, you enter into a first house year, which has so much to do with your identity, how you show yourself to the world, who you are, and so on. So when Trixie started recording season 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race, she was in a first house perfection year. She had really just started to come into who Trixie Mattel was as a person and who Brian Furcus wasn't.
I'm a hair and makeup artist. So I think a lot of the queens don't necessarily get where I'm coming from.
So, and honestly, Trixie Mattel as a persona might even live more into her second house. So as she turned 25, she probably started to have a lot more of a clear sense of what is Trixie's fashion and who does she want to be in her drag persona. So, I don't know, interesting. Nonetheless, this year, where she's like going through these transits, as we have season 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race being recorded, there is just a big emphasis on beauty. She goes through her Venus return. I mean, who knows? I don't know how long Drag Race takes to record, but I would imagine maybe 2 months or so. So this might be like about halfway through. She has her Venus return. Maybe that's when she got to come back and perform with Pearl that one time. At the same time, she has a Mercury retrograde going on, which is a very big deal for her because she is a Virgo rising. So anytime Mercury, her ruling planet, is starting to go backwards, things for how she's showing herself to the world and who she is as a person start to get very, very muddled and confusing. And it's even going back into her second house of like material possessions. And middle of October, October 16th, there was a Mercury Cazimi, which Cazimi just means sun, said planet on top of each other. The planet like being sort of purified, clean slated by the sun. So around this time, she might have maybe then went through an experience where she was like, oh, like this is who Trixie Mattel is. This is what I need to do to show myself to the world. Maybe this was clarity after she got eliminated and then sort of started to think like this is just an opportunity for me to like build my empire. And she probably just saw a lot of opportunities related to her career because Mercury also rules her 10th house of career. So that's good for her. I think this season 7 race was very essential for her to confront these fears that she may have been having related to fame and how people perceived her, and moving on from this Saturn on top of her Pluto so she could really start to express her creativity in a way where she stopped caring what other people thought. Conjoined twins. This is where she wins her spot back because she works with Pearl and then she gets to come back into the competition. And the date for this one is April 20th, 2015. So I suppose we should go to the release date too and see what was going on for there. So March 2nd was when this all started to actually be broadcasted to the world. So let's go to that date. All right, March 2nd. So she's got Jupiter now retrograding in her 12th house. So probably a lot of anxiety around how people are going to perceive her. Probably a lot of like mental struggles going on that she's now having to come to terms with and talk to someone about as she has Mercury in her 6th house. Beyond that, she's got the North Node almost exactly on top of her Venus, so this is going to be a great opportunity no matter how she is perceived to get money. Oh, and then look at that. She's got Venus in her 8th house of other people's money. So she's going through her Venus opposition. Well, I guess it happened a few days before this. If we go back, it'll be at 6 degrees. She's going through a Venus opposition where at this time she might be relying on other people's money a little bit more. She also might be taking out a loan. I mean, there's lots of mundane reasonings behind this and might not be significant or tied to Drag Race at all. April 20th is when Trixie returns and performs with Max. Now, this day doesn't look super significant, but what is interesting is that if we go for just 1 week to where Trixie actually wins the mini challenge, and she doesn't win the main challenge, but she doesn't do bad. She does a really great job, actually. Her Venus is, or not her Venus, transiting Venus is exactly on top of her midheaven, which the midheaven represents how people see you in the world. So she came back at a really great time for people to see her as she is, how she wants to be seen. Venus in the sky is supporting how people are perceiving her in the public. So when this episode premiered, everyone loved her. Like, her comeback moment was the comeback moment where everyone was, if they didn't love her the first time, they had to love her now. So that's amazing. I thought that was a really cool transit. She also has Mercury on top of her moon. So lots of emotion related to this time. Lots of talking about her emotions. I'm sure, depending on what the moon represents in her chart, maybe she was just talking to a lot of people about the experience and whatnot. Moon going over her South Node. Her South Node is very important to her drag career, I've realized. So we'll come back to that when we talk about her premiere in Allstars 3. Actually, let's do that now. I don't really know if there's much else to say. Oh, just that the North Node, again, is getting closer the further we get. Let's see when it goes exactly on top of her Venus. Yeah, it takes a while. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so not until June of that year, which June of that year would have been, what, RuPaul's Drag Con, every Pride event ever, everywhere. So although she did not win money from RuPaul, which would have been like the 8th house, she built her own empire by her own persona, by her own branding skills. And then over the summer, she always, with like Gemini season coming up, has a ton of stuff going on professionally. Because she'll have the Mars. Well, Mars isn't always there during Gemini season, but she'll definitely always have the sun going through there. Usually Mercury, maybe before or after the sun. And she even had the moon at this time going over her Jupiter. Oh, where'd it go? Yeah, so, wow. Her first Pride after she went through RuPaul's Drag Race season 7 was probably very, very emotional, and very connected to her destiny as a drag queen. Now we're going to talk about Allstars 3 with Trixie.
Oh, honey. Whew. That's how I roll.
So it says that it was announced in August of 2017 and then began airing in January 2015. So I would just imagine there's like a 6 to 7 month like recording, editing, promoting phase. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but either way, I'm gonna imagine that Trixie got a call from RuPaul, let's say in July. So if that is the case, there are some interesting transits going on. So I just put July 4th for the purposes of a few things. Firstly, Trixie is going through her nodal opposition, and what that means is the sign where she has her South Node, the North Node is, and vice versa, North Node where her South Node is. And this is a very pivotal point in everyone's life. It happens about every, let's see, what ages would it be? 27 and then add 18, subtract 18 from that. So when you're 9, when you're 27, and as Katya would say,
I didn't go to school for math.
the nodes are the ecliptic plane that the moon moves on. So it's the highest point in the sky for the moon with the north node, and then the lowest point for the south node. And at this time, her south node, which is in Leo, is being conjuncted by the north node that's transiting the sky with Leo. And then the same with her north node in Aquarius is being conjuncted by the transiting south node in Aquarius. Now, what's interesting is that the south node represents the past, and then the north node represents what you need to move towards, what you need to embrace. So in some ways, a lot of topics of the past come up when you go through a nodal opposition. And for Trixie, with this being in her house of Leo, Leo often has to do with fame and creative expression. So she's really being embraced or guided to face how she was creatively expressing herself in the past and refine that a little bit, or direct herself in a way to change that or confront it in some aspect. The other interesting thing is that at this time, Venus was going over her natal moon, which rules her 11th house of communities. I mean, in Drag Race, like, they call everyone, are you a Rue girl when you like are on the show or whatever? So she could be having like a really great opportunity come up connected to her sense of community. And she has her Jupiter there too, so she's already very blessed with a sense of community and like all of her super dedicated fans, as I mentioned before. Now, if we go just a day further, Venus transits into her 10th house of career, so this could mark like a very high point of her career. So maybe as this is going through her chart, let's see, for the entire month of July into August, and even in August now it's conjoining her Jupiter, which is like one of the luckiest transits you can go through is Venus conjunct your Jupiter in her 11th house of communities. Very lucky, fans perceiving you very well, groups of people perceiving you very well. Kurt Cobain also had Jupiter in his 11th house conjunct his moon, so that's like a deep emotional connection from your fans. So with Trixie, and it being in the water sign of Cancer, it's sort of a similar comparison. Now, other prominent things related to the transits. Oh yeah, Jupiter. She has Jupiter in her 2nd house, which is way luckier than having the North Node or even Venus there in her 2nd house of her money, because now she's come back with a lot of money to Allstars. She even said that herself before. She did not come and spend a lot of money on anything. So let's see, if we go back, I mean, Jupiter had, let's see, when did Jupiter enter her 2nd house? Because that was probably a significant turning point of when she started to have more money. 2016. So around I think that was around the time that they started their like little TV show as well. Maybe it was a little bit before that, but either way, starting in September of 2016, she had Jupiter moving through her 2nd house of money. It did retrograde for a little bit. But either way, that is very good for financial matters. So she was actually able to come to Drag Race with money saved up, which is huge. Beyond that, there was something else I wanted to look at. So as the air date came, which is January of 2018, let's go there. Close enough. Well, I guess let's go to the exact day. Okay, so we're at January 25th, 2018. So this is the premiere date. What are some notable transits she's got going on? Oh yeah! She's about to go through her Saturn return. So as season 3 is premiering, Saturn is slowly, right here, approaching her natal Saturn at 7 degrees. So we've got, let's check. February, boom, there we go, okay. February 25th, and this was premiering until March 15th, so February 25th, 2018. Let's see which episode premiered around that time. Oh, look at that. Trixie won the challenge. Oh yeah, this is when she had her little Pepto-Bismol soup can.
Trixie Mattel. Open wide and get a taste of my non-refillable, prescription-only, habit-forming, heart-slowing goodness. Just like my soup, I'm inspired by rainbows, little birdies, and the re-emerging dark recesses of a rocky childhood. Side effects include drowsiness, nausea, depression, suicidal thoughts, or a broken DVR. Looks like children of the corn chowder.
February 22nd, which is right around the time that she started to have her Saturn return, like exact. I mean, she had her with Saturn return, as soon as it enters the sign you're beginning it, there is just like sort of a peak point where things really start to get solidified in that area of chart. And so this area of her chart is her creativity, her sense of creative expression. So look at that, end of December, which is leading up to right when this premiered in January, and then all through the rest of the premiere. So, okay, let's change this to weeks so this can go a little bit faster. So we've got the premiere right here, and then week by week, Saturn is slowly approaching, and then what happens right around, yep, right here, okay, so the finale, the day that she won, was March 15th. Let's go there, actually. Let's see what was going on. March 15th, notable transits. Let's see. Sun exactly on top of her descendant. So people really perceiving her in a positive way, or just perceiving her, eyes on her. Lots of discussions with other people. Where's Mercury? Whoa. Okay. Okay, notable transit. Venus is now in her 8th house of other people's money and her ruling planet of Mercury. So unlike last time where Venus was in the 2nd house, and then we had the North Node up here, she's got the planet that represents her in the 8th house of other people's money, RuPaul's money, and Venus, her 2nd house ruler, almost exactly opposite her Venus, which is sort of like a conversation between the two where, okay, Trixie, you've invested a lot of money into your drag. You have built a career outside of these 4 walls for yourself, and now you have come here and had an emotional, chilling portrayal of Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus. I think the most notable transit for this entire thing, though, is definitely her Saturn return, because when Saturn returns for her, it hits her Uranus, which is the planet of revolution, upheaval, change. So she likely went through a very dramatic change in how like she expresses her drag.
You are now pushing yourself out of the Trixie Mattel box, so to speak, and you're making yourself do things that maybe wouldn't be in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I think you taking those risks is paying off in spades.
Thank you, I think so too.
know if you got the invite late or what, but you RSVP'd and you showed up today.
The Trixie that I wanted has finally arrived. Yep.
And then it's also going opposite once it hits 4 degrees from her from her Cancer Jupiter in the 11th house of community. She could have had some issues with her fans around this time, which, wow, what a shock that certain Drag Race fans would be annoying or rude or just not know when to stop and so on. But nonetheless, this Saturn return for her really helped her, I think, develop her sense of ego with like her son being trined by it, and then also just like her sense of creative expression. Like I said, Saturn really solidifies whatever part of your chart it returns to you, as long as you've been making the strides that you need to. And Trixie coming back and really facing her past and how she presented herself in Allstars 7 seems like a story that was sort of getting wrapped up around this time. Oh, and look at this. So we had Venus going through Aquarius on top of her North Node while she was on the show was being broadcasted as well. So not while she was recording it or anything, but while the world was enjoying it. She had a transit of Venus from her, let's see, did it start in her 5th house? Yeah. Wait, 1 week later. No. January 25th? No. Started in her 6th house, hit her North Node, now it's in her 7th house of other people, really positive for how the public is going to perceive you, or just like people you have close relationships with. She probably bonded a lot with her sisters on this season more than the other ones, and then having Venus go into the 8th house of other people's money, and a very lucky transit to get money from somebody else. People are likely going to give you the money. So I wonder if RuPaul is an astrologer. What do you think? I feel like RuPaul is way too smart to not have an astrologer, to be honest with you. Trixie's Saturn return had a lot to do with her stepping into herself and embracing her sense of creativity. I also wonder, what date did she start Trixie Cosmetics? When was Trixie Cosmetics created? Don't mind my incredible misspellings. May 1st, 2019 would be releasing her. And then May 24th. Okay. Woo. Let's go. Okay. Okay. May 1st, 2019, she announces that she's going to be releasing a beauty brand. Significant transits. She's got Mars on top of her MC. So let's see, what does Mars rule in her chart? Mars rules other people's money, which is what she's getting, I guess, from the business. And Mars rules her 3rd house of communication, which I guess, okay, so if you're making an important announcement, it does make sense that your 3rd house ruler would be on top of your midhaven, which is like your public. So there you go. Important announcement made. And then May 24th, it's available at RuPaul's Drag Con. So what's going on here? So she's got Mercury and the Sun now both in her career planet. She's got Mars on top of Jupiter. This was probably a rather rough drag con for her as far as interacting with fans. I can't imagine in a day chart Mars was doing great things for her. That said, she does have the North Node, so she might have gotten some really great affirmations from fans, or maybe exciting opportunities. The South Node in her 5th house of creativity, going through a style journey, probably changing a lot of the way she creatively expressed herself, which, that's probably what that was for her. This makeup release, her North Node in the 11th house, bringing people together through makeup and creating a sense of community that way. So it's less about her own creative expression, like doing her own makeup on herself, but making makeup for other people. And this North Node in the 11th house transit was probably a lot about, okay, like this is what creatively I do, but how can I share that with other people? That's like the 11th house topic. So that's significant. Also, she's got her ascendant ruler in her 10th house of career, so she's really making moves, showing who she is, expressing her brand in a way that's clearly aligned with her persona, which is her, that's what your rising sign is all about. So that's significant. So is Trixie Mattel rich? Well, let's see. She has Venus in the 2nd house. Net worth of $10 million. Yeah, that's what Venus and Libra in the 2nd house will do for you, especially if you've got these 3 Virgo planets working you hard, working you so hard you almost shit your pants every Tuesday, according to one episode of that I just watched. She's got devoted fans with this Jupiter in her 11th. I think her literal religion is beauty and makeup, with her moon in Taurus trining her Mercury. Her message is beauty. Her message is comfort. Her message is just a sense of security. That's really what she tries to communicate to people, and acceptance for sure. And that Saturn return, if there's any example to not be afraid of your Saturn return, it's this. Trixie Mattel winning Drag Race during her Saturn return, because it's solidifying her ego. It's also going opposite of her Jupiter in the 11th house, so really thinking deeply about the communities you're a part of and what they bring to you and what you bring to them, and it being in her 5th house of creative expression, setting a solid foundation for how you want to express yourself creatively. I think I'm going to leave it there. So if you're worried about your Saturn return, I mean, there's a lot of context that in like a consultation we could build, but looking at the house that it's in will at least give you a topic that maybe you can think, yeah, my life has been sort of tedious revolving those things. Thinking about the aspects that it's making in your chart can give you clues to how you can help balance that, like for Trixie. Seeking out people that enjoy the same things as she does is huge for inspiring her to be a creative person. And that, I guess, had a lot to do with her starting this makeup brand, by her creating things where more people can take part in like the makeup journey that she started with herself working at a Sephora counter is hugely important for her. So thanks for watching. If you liked this video and would like to see more, please hit subscribe. Please comment. That super helps me with the algorithm to get more people like it. Send it to Trixie Mattel. Maybe she'll react to it. That would be sick. If there's any other drag queens watching, contact me on Instagram. I'll totally read your chart for you and do a video. I think the next person I might do is Katya, as I mentioned, but I'm also really, really interested in Crystal Methods astrology, so I might do hers. But thanks for watching again. My name's Colleen. I'm a traditional astrologer, and I would love it if you would book a reading with me. Bye!